So obviously there's three topics we're going to tackle right now. I don't know if any of these tables, or even if we move people around, is there anybody logically that should be working on the board meeting versus the media versus the restructure of the cluster meetings? I don't know if there's, a sneaky.
So, we got some dissension at the table. Suki. Well, so this is stuff that seems to lean towards what we're already doing and rehashing it, but there isn't enough of what's new among the three we've chosen.
So that I would slightly disagree because
Okay.
your job actually is to hash out what's new associated. Granted, so when I was talking to the teams, I said if you already have 10 forums and you're not going to be able to remove those 10 forums, what you got to look at is how do you restructure those. So when you go through in your team and you talk about one of these three specifically, it should be addressing how these things should change, what should be added, what should be modified, to come up with that action plan. Agree that something like the where they are meeting sounds like it's a new thing and would need kind of a new approach. Trust me, when I talk to Andrew, the goal is you will have a list of these things that we will need to be assigned to do beyond today. If we have time today, we can go ahead and attack the next three, because it looks like the where they are, the structured engagement opportunities, and the leverage and create opportunities to partner with faith-based communities were the next set. If we have time, we'll go to those. But my goal is to at least give you the structure of what you should flesh out to get the details down so that you guys can actually have an actionable plan. I just don't know how many of these topic areas we're going to hit.
Can I just say, I think, not even just from today, but I think there's been a growing conversation that, certainly with respect to cluster meetings, we're not talking about just like a little tweak. We're talking about really thinking about once the board is going out into a community, how do we take advantage of that opportunity? How do we do outreach to really bring in people who might not otherwise come to Carver or come to testify, whether they should happen in addition to or be collapsed with Josh's community. I think it's really, this is not just around the edges, this is really thinking about when the board goes into the community, what should that look like, for what purpose, and how do we do it?
I have just a question about the cluster meetings. My understanding, I may be wrong on this, one thing I've heard about cluster meetings is that the PTAs really take a lot of responsibility. It's their thing. So I'm wondering about whether, just process-wise, we can make some decisions or proposals without PTA, right? If they're seen as and would we actually be, it may be inefficient in some ways if we go. And now there's some ideas we can flesh out, but it seems to me if they're meeting, then they've got to be really involved in helping us think through what they want. And if we go to them and say, here, we've redesigned your cluster meetings, then that could be a little bit of an issue. So
No, that's a fair point, because we could talk about that a little bit.
And particularly if we're talking about engagement, it would seem that we want to deeply engage with them about this in a blank slate kind of way.
So process check with the
Sure.
sponsor of the activity. We could have a group focus on where they are meetings instead here today, with the idea that the cluster meeting is an activity that, there's some ideas, maybe we do flesh some of them out, or here today or not, and then have that as a joint discussion with the PTA.
So, go ahead, I'm sorry. So I think that this restructuring of the cluster meetings is important, right? And it may be that we spend some time here figuring out what might happen, so we can go have a more informed discussion with the PTA. And I'm not against it.
Which is what I thought you guys were going to do, because I didn't think you were just going to whole hog tell them.
I feel like we, as a whole board, haven't said to each other, what would we like to talk to the PTA about? So this is our opportunity to say, we absolutely value and respect the PTA leadership and PTA community. We clearly need to find a way that works efficiently for them, but candidly, we often get calls from them saying, what do you want? What do you want us to do? What do you want us to bring in? And so it behooves us to use our time together to say, you know, what do we want to bring to them as saying, this is kind of what we're looking for. Does this work? How should we structure it? And we have had conversations over the years with them about how they might open up, because we have a shared interest with PTA. They also want to reach deeper into the community. So a lot of the cluster meetings, there have been efforts made, whether it's using the last hour, having it totally open to the community, or doing some, you know, inviting community to come in and ask questions. But it's not, you know, that has ended up putting a lot of onus on the PTA to do that outreach that we may be better suited to do with our resources. So some of it is also saying to them, if you're open to having that community piece, we can leverage our resources to do the outreach for it. So I do feel like there's a value in us as a board saying this is what we'd like to discuss, and then, you know, maybe having our officers sit down and do it.
Now that by way of example, as I talk to the PTA about how we might partner more deeply around community engagement team, and they look at the neighborhoods we have chosen to do them. The reality is that they don't have bus coordinators in many of those neighborhoods, right? So this is an opportunity for us to sort of dovetail the work.
Okay, so I think we're back to, we're gonna tackle the 3 first. If we get done early, we can move on to the other ones.
All right, this is what it is.
Or we can make sure that Tim gets assigned.
And I'm just going to co-sign
close out.
on Tim's, because what's interesting, and I, you know, I'll go with the group, but where they are meetings is really one of the newest. It's a new strategy. The others we're refining, we're upgrading, and so I just want to make sure, as everyone else does, that we don't miss the opportunity to really do quality that.
Exactly, so we can break it, you have enough people that we can break in 4 groups.
Let's do that.
Let's do that.
Let's do it.
Yep.
Larry will be happy.
Speaking for my team.
Okay, so we have to.
Our fearless leader.
People right now, I think, so can we do 4 groups of 4?
Yep.
All right, so I'm just gonna go with a wild assumption that somewhere over here might want to do where they are meeting.
I'm okay working in any of the groups.
Well, somebody from your group is gonna have to work on something else. So we do. So we're gonna go with the 4 topics. Okay. So
I just have, you know, I'm going to trust, you know, something which I'm going to go playground.
okay, so I need to know from you all, in all seriousness, if you guys are, if Tim, if your table's passionate about this, you guys should do that. So we're gonna call you table A, because I don't like to use numbers. So then table B will be kind of created here. Do you have a preference on topics? Okay. So B, and so then I think it's actually Josh, and Bill over next. How did we do somebody?
Yeah, well,
Well,
I will try to do that.
so she's, that makes it 4, right? Uh-huh. And then I got 4, and I'm still missing 1. I'm not even count right. We gotta take, we gotta go to 3. We gotta go to 3.
Oh, sorry, only
Okay.
that's okay.
So do you guys have a preference out of the board meeting or the media strategy? We have to do the board meeting.
Board, subject matter.
I'm not trying to do the media strategy in the board meeting, but I'm happy to.
So you can
join
switch
it up.
teams. Okay.
And then,
I would, at this point, it is more important that you work on a topic that you are either passionate about, know about, or want to help flesh out.
all right,
Yeah.
all right, so I'm switching with
All
Josh.
right.
So,
Media
we're all done
strategy.
here with Shirley, where are
What do
you?
you-
Okay.
So you're doing board meetings. This is board meetings? Who's doing cluster?
You're us, you do us.
Oh, you were there.
You are board meeting. Oh, all right, we need to do about 4.
So we've got the where they are meetings,
4 in each.
cluster. Okay.
So I'm gonna tweak.